Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Royal Ramble podcast. I am your host, Zach Stevens, and we are here to review the episode of Raw from June 19th, 2017, out of the Ford Center in Evansville, Indiana. As always, man, you can follow us on Twitter at Ramble_cast. Again, that is Ramble_cast. And of course, you can always subscribe to our YouTube page where you're going to find the highest quality episodes of the Royal Ramble podcast. That is the destination to listen to us, so definitely check us out over there. We are also on Podbean. Give us a click over there at royalrambleradio.podbean.com. You can always download the Podbean app and listen to us wherever you are. And if you have any questions or anything like that and you'd like those read on the air, send us an email at royalrambleradio@gmail.com. So yeah, man, tonight's episode of Raw was actually really good. I'm legitimately surprised. We're obviously coming off that pay-per-view of Money in the Bank from Sunday, which, if you haven't yet, please go check out a review of Money in the Bank 2017. I go the fuck off on that ending to the women's match. That is something you definitely want to hear. You do not want to miss that, so go ahead and listen to that. That is definitely on our pages, so go check that out. But yeah, man, tonight's Raw was actually surprisingly really good. I mean, the past couple of Raws have been okay. Some have been pretty horrible. But tonight's episode, man, kept me entertained, and it had a lot to it. So we need to get into this review as soon as possible. Obviously, we have our questions, as always, like we do here on the Royal Ramble podcast. We have some questions as we head into this episode. Obviously, first, they teased that announcement from Roman, saying that he's going to announce his SummerSlam plans. So what exactly is that going to be? What is his announcement, and what is he going to say tonight? The next question I have immediately is, are we going to get answers to the Enzo, Big Cass, and the Corey and Kurt angle that they've been teasing each week? I've been saying how if they drag this thing out too long, the payoff is not going to be worth it, no matter who it is. So we need to get some answers quick before it's dragged out way too long. Obviously, I want to know what Roman and Balor's plans are going to be for Great Balls of Fire. We have that pay-per-view coming up in a couple weeks, so, and only part of that card is filled out right now. We obviously have Joe and Brock Lesnar, and probably Seth and Bray and a few other ones, but other than that, man, the card is kind of empty right now, so we need to have some plans for some of our big names like Roman and Balor, so we'll see if they do anything about that tonight. And then, of course, finally, what will Joe do tonight as he heads into his battle with Brock? Obviously, that is the hottest feud right now in WWE. That is the match that we all want to see. So anytime either of them are on TV to promote that match, that is going to be something that you cannot miss. So those are my questions as we head into Raw tonight. And fortunately, a lot of these questions do get answered. So let's not waste any more time, man. Let's head right into this review. The show starts out of Evansville, Indiana, with Roman Reigns heading to the ring, and of course, boos erupt in the Ford Center arena. We are about to get his announcement right off the top of the show. They aren't wasting any time here. Roman paces around in the ring. He doesn't say a word, just more boos just raining down on top of him as he waits to make his promo. He's wearing this new shirt that looks really, really horrible. I don't know what this design is. It looks like him doing a Superman punch, but it actually looks more like AJ Styles doing the phenomenal forearm. So really bad design, and that is a shirt you would never catch me wearing. So they need to go back to the drawing board with that ugly ass thing. So anyway, Roman finally does decide to speak on the mic despite the boos, and he says, "Some of y'all might hate this, some of y'all might love this, but when it comes down to it, I can't be beaten one-on-one. Just ask Bray Wyatt, ask Finn Balor, ask Seth Rollins, and ask Braun Strowman." By the way, Roman, I think Braun might have kicked your ass a few times. I don't know if you'd want us to ask him. Anyway, he goes on to say that he main evented his third WrestleMania in a row. This is obviously a huge, huge heel promo here from Roman. Obviously, he's not, talking shit to the crowd or anything like a stereotypical heel would, but he is really putting himself in that heel position, which, by the way, I love it, man. This is easily one of Roman's best promos because he's embracing the reaction that the crowd is giving him. What I hate from Roman, my big deal with him is, one, obviously they've been pushing him down our throats forever, right? However, when he goes out there and he acts 100% babyface and the crowd is completely just booing the shit out of him, that's what I hate. this Roman right here, the one that actually embraces the crowd's reaction, that is the Roman that I want to see, and I feel like that's the Roman that everyone else wants to see. So props to them for finally letting him play into that a little bit, and that really made this promo really, really good. He goes on to say that he retired The Undertaker at WrestleMania. We get huge Undertaker chants. Roman says this is the plan. After Great Balls of Fire, he doesn't care who wins, obviously referring to Brock, or he says that guy they call Joe, because at SummerSlam, he is the number one contender for the Universal title. He goes on to say that this is his yard, he makes the rules around here, and then before he can finish, Joe's music hits. You obviously do not say Joe's name without putting some respect on it. That is one thing that he constantly brings up. You got to put respect on his name if you're going to say it, and Roman definitely did not do that. Like I said, man, this was a serious heel promo from Roman. Joe basically the face in this whole angle here. Absolutely love it, man. Great start to Raw so far. So Joe comes out. He says, it seems you've forgotten my name. He brings up the list of names that Roman has beaten, but says his name isn't on that list because Roman has never beaten him. Obviously, you remember back about 4 months ago when Joe made his initial appearance, he beat Roman clean. So he has not beaten Samoa Joe as of yet. Joe goes on to introduce himself to Roman again, saying he's the true number one contender and the next Universal Champion. Roman says that he never thought he'd agree with Heyman, but what he said is true. He says that he will never be Samoa Joe, and to me, you'll always be just Joe. Obviously really playing into both of them being of Samoan heritage, Roman really not respecting him, basically saying that Joe is the black sheep of the Samoan family, calling him just Joe. Joe is fuming at this. He gets right face-to-face with Roman. We have this nice face-to-face moment, and then out of nowhere, he headbutts Roman and drives Reigns out of the ring. Joe just goes ham on Roman here, throws him into the table, into the barricade. He slams Roman's head into the apron, then throws him back into the ring. All this time, he's just constantly yelling at him, saying, "Say my name, say my name." Joe then goes for the coquina clutch on Roman, but Roman is able to slip out. Then he turns around, hits a Superman punch to Joe. Joe then rolls out of the ring as Roman stands in the ring and his music plays. Thoughts about this opening segment, man? Perfect. Love that heel attitude from Roman. I love it when he comes out like that, being a big, cocky heel, just acting like a badass. That is the Roman that I want to see personally. So really, really happy to see him actually come out and embrace that crowd reaction. However, I do hope this is something that he continues to do. A lot of the times in the past, they'll have Roman come out and he'll do a heelish type promo, but then the next promo he does, he's full babyface for the next one. So I really hope that they actually continue with this attitude from Roman because it really fits his character a lot more. I really like the cocky, arrogant Reigns. I have a lot of issues with Reigns and how he's been pushed over the years, but now that he's finally embracing that crowd reaction, I prefer it a lot more, man. So I'm really glad that is the case. I really hate, like I said, when he comes out as a full face and the entire crowd is just booing the shit out of him. It just doesn't make any sense. So now that he's actually playing into that reaction, that is the Roman that we all want. So overall, nice start to Raw. I'm obviously guessing because of this little interaction we just had that this will lead into a Joe versus Roman match tonight. Overall, Roman's announcement I thought was pretty lackluster for how much they built it up. I thought he was going to say something a little bit more of substance than that. But, it is what it is. What I was originally thinking was that Braun may come out and attack Roman here and then set up a match at SummerSlam or Great Balls of Fire. But no, Roman just basically says, look, he's taking on whoever is next. Which, obviously, later in the show, we'll talk about this a little bit more, but it's going to be interesting to see what they do with Roman at Great Balls of Fire, so we will see. So it is official. They do announce that we are getting Roman versus Joe tonight. However, this is not the main event. I originally thought this would be, but there's something that happens in this show that is a little bit more important than this, even though the match that we get out of those two guys is fucking incredible. Really, really good match on Raw. So the first match, though, that we actually get on tonight's episode is the Hardy Boys versus Gallows and Anderson. And immediately my first thought is, holy shit, wow, the Hardy Boys are allowed to fight someone that is not named Cesaro and Sheamus. Am I dreaming? Someone better pinch me. Someone wake me up because this can't be true. But it is. They actually do get to fight someone other than Cesaro and Sheamus. So finally glad to see the Hardy Boys fighting someone new. Anderson and Matt start the match, but it isn't long before he tags in Jeff. Jeff drives Anderson into the post, then Matt tags back in. They throw Carl around, they throw him into the post, and then deliver a suplex to him as a team. Luke then comes in and starts beating down on Matt. He hits him with a series of clotheslines, but he goes in for an elbow but misses. Jeff and Matt then hit Poetry in Motion to Gallows for a near fall. Gallows throws Jeff around at this point, then tags in Carl Anderson. Anderson punches down Jeff, and then we get huge Hardy chants out of this crowd. Decent crowd tonight. They definitely were awake for a lot of these segments because, like I said, man, this was a good episode of Raw, and they kept us entertained, so good show for them. Jeff then goes to the top rope, but Carl knocks him down, and he takes this nasty bump here, man. He hit the mat really awkwardly. The ref rushes in and has to ask him if he's okay, and he obviously says yes, but man, this was a nasty bump here. We come back from commercial. Gallows and Anderson are in control. Carl's keeping Jeff from getting the tag by holding his left arm. Then he grabs Jeff's hair and pulls him back. Jeff then dodges Carl in the corner, but is still unable to get the tag. So obviously playing into that whole, can't get the tag situation and the other team keeping you away from your partner. Jeff nearly gets the tag, but Gallows cheap shots Matt off of the apron. Then Jeff goes to the top rope and hits a Whisper in the Wind into Gallows and Anderson here. And during this, he also has a nasty-ass bump where he nearly hits his head on the top rope from this move. It could have been super bad, guys. The Whisper in the Wind, he just basically didn't get enough leverage on it. He didn't get away from the ropes enough, and he nearly hits his head on that rope. Corey Graves even points out how sketchy this fall was. Definitely close to really maybe fucking himself up, so glad that he didn't get hurt. Matt finally gets the tag. He starts taking it to Anderson. Matt heads to the top rope. He hits the elbow to the back of Carl. Matt then hits the side effect for a near fall. There's a roll up on Anderson by Matt. Oh, I'm sorry. There's a roll up by Anderson on Matt. Then Gallows grabs Matt's leg. Gallows cheap shots Matt by punching him from the outside. Carl Anderson then hits the Boot of Doom on Matt for a 2 count. Kind of thought he was going to get pinned there. Jeff gets the tag on Matt without Gallows realizing it. Matt then hits the Twist of Fate. Jeff heads to the top rope, hits the Swanton Bomb, and it's 1, 2, 3. Hardys win. Thoughts, I really thought Jeff kind of carried this match. He was kind of being his typical spot monkey type of persona here. He had 3 or 4 really big spots in this match that made it entertaining, and obviously those 2 that were really nasty bumps also helped elevate this match a little bit. So overall, I'm glad to see that the Hardy Boys are getting a different matchup here, but, all this is heading into is another rematch with Cesaro and Sheamus at Great Balls of Fire. That's all this is going towards. So anyone they face other than those guys basically just doesn't matter, man. So, obviously I have my issues with the Hardy Boys facing Cesaro and Sheamus all the time, so I'm not excited for that. I can't get excited for that. And I'm just ready for this whole shit to end, and I want the Hardys to be broken. That's what needs to happen here. Otherwise, man, this whole return for the Hardys has just been one nostalgic fuckfest, basically. So that's it, man. So next segment we get is a Shattered Dreams Goldust promo. It's the same type of thing we've been getting for the 3 or 4 past weeks at this point, so nothing really new here. I'm starting to think, is this ever actually going to lead to a match? Or are we just going to keep getting these promos and nothing more? But eventually, at the end of this promo, Goldust does challenge R-Truth to meet him next week for a match at Raw. So this will lead into something. So finally, I do appreciate the build that they're giving this. I do like these promos out of Goldust and R-Truth. Goldust promos in this fashion are really, really good. It's just I have a hard time getting excited for a Goldust R-Truth match. I mean, that is something that we would typically see on a pre-show match or main event, right? It's just hard for me to get excited about it, but, we'll see what happens. Maybe this whole new Goldust persona, maybe he'll just come out there and destroy R-Truth and become a huge badass heel. We don't know, man. We'll see next week when they battle on Raw. So next in the ring, we have Elias Sampson. He's obviously doing his same old gimmick as always, reciting his name and getting heat. He asks who wants to walk with Elias. Then he goes into his usual promo where he, shits on the town and starts to, sing a song about it. He's getting lots of what chants here. The heat is definitely working for this guy. He plays a chord on his guitar, then stops. And he says, "Hold on, I'm going to need to tune my guitar." Then he starts tuning every single string right in the middle of the show. I thought this was hilarious, guys. This got a legitimate laugh out of me because obviously no one wants to hear someone tune a guitar right in the middle of a show. It's definitely a heel thing to do. He then demands silence from the crowd so that he can hear his guitar and tune it. I thought this was great, man. Elias Samson is easily becoming a true heel here. I'm loving his gimmick, man, and I cannot believe that he went from being someone that was so shitty on NXT to coming to the main roster and actually elevating himself above what his NXT character was. You know, a lot of the times we see these guys, these hot teams come from NXT, they come over and then they just fall flat on Raw. I mean, there's tons of examples of that. I don't even need to go into them. There's so many. But it's really cool to see it when it actually works. And for a guy like Elias Samson, man, I'm surprised that he's actually getting this over and getting this much heat in his current role. So as soon as he demands silence from the crowd so he can tune his guitar, Finn Balor's music hits. I'm digging this already. I'm thinking, yeah, man, we're going to have Balor versus Elias Samson tonight. That's actually kind of cool. They stare each other down in the ring, but then Elias slowly walks back and walks away from Balor and begins to leave. And that's all that happens, so we don't actually get a match from Elias and Balor here. Apparently, Balor just came to the ring because he's actually in action tonight against someone else, and that ends up being Bo Dallas, which that didn't go as expected, how I expected at all. I didn't expect to see Bo Dallas tonight whatsoever. I thought for sure we were getting Balor versus Samson, but no, man, we get Bo Dallas in the ring. Which, by the way, man, Bo Dallas has completely new in-ring gear here. He's rocking elbow and knee pads. He's got this black and red color scheme. And he's got this big, nasty beard and long hair, kind of like Neville a little bit. But he looks completely different. Looks like he's put on some more muscle. Definitely has a whole different attitude. And I'm wondering if this will end up leading to a new push for Bo. We will see. As Finn is trying to take off his jacket before the match, Dallas attacks him immediately. Balor is basically out from this attack from Bo. Dallas attacks Balor in the corner, and then they finally ring the bell. Bo then does this. He starts doing the Akira Tozawa thing, going, and he keeps doing it. So this is definitely some gimmick infringement going on here, guys. He's definitely doing the exact same thing that Akira Tozawa does, who, by the way, does this on this very same show. So very weird to see Bo kind of copying that or stealing that from Tozawa. Anyway, Bo sends Balor to the outside and delivers a hard knee to Balor as he sets up against the barricade. Basically, Balor's just sprawled out against the barricade, and Balor comes running in. Bo comes running in and just hits a vicious knee to Balor. Looked really good here. Dallas sends Balor back into the ring, and Finn is able to finally get some offense going with an overhead kick. Balor starts stomping on Bo repeatedly, nearly getting himself DQ'd, so really showing that he's more vicious and angry right now. He then clotheslines Bo to the outside and hits him with that running kick that he always does on the apron that always looks so good. Balor then starts throwing Bo around on the outside, basically slamming him in to each barricade all over the ring, just circling around, throwing him into all the barricades. Balor then gets back into the ring. He hits the sling blade, drop kicks Bo into the corner, then hits the coup de grace. 1, 2, 3. Balor beats Dallas. Overall thoughts, I probably would have preferred an Elias Balor match more than Balor versus, random ass Bo Dallas. But I think it's cool that we got to see Bo tonight, especially in his new gear and his new type of persona that we're getting here. Obviously, Balor looks good. He always does. Still not sure what his plans are for Great Balls of Fire or SummerSlam yet. It seems weird that things have been a little quiet on that front for him and some of the other guys, but we still have like 3 weeks to go, I'm sure. So I'm pretty sure he's going to get a match on this card, and we may actually get an answer to that later on in this show. The question for Dallas, though, is this going to be an actual return for him, or will he just fade off into existence like he always does? They'll usually bring back Bo every now and then to job him out, or he'll be on main event, but then he just disappears, and we don't see him again for a very long time. So I actually liked Bo's kind of rapid offense in the beginning of this match. He looked way more dominant in that first 2 to 3 minutes than he has in his entire career on the main roster. Balor, like I said, always looks good, as always, but this overall wasn't really a great match. It was just a match and kind of, elevated Balor a little bit and showed that Dallas was back. So I think it worked for both of these guys, but in the end, it was just a match. Next, we have a segment, and they go back to the commentary table, and Corey gets a phone call. So obviously, we are getting some answers. We're getting a little bit of story evolution out of that Corey-Kurt Angle segment. He tells the rest of the panel, Booker T and Michael Cole, he tells them that he has to take this call, gets up, and leaves. They then show the trailer for the new WWE 2K18 game with Seth Rollins on the cover. Obviously, that was announced. He was on ESPN earlier in the day, announcing that he would be the cover star of this game. This trailer was insane. It had basically nothing to do with wrestling. It basically has a man in this mask who's like burning down buildings and smashing title belts and breaking glass. And at the end, he decapitates a statue of Andre the Giant. Then at the very end, he pulls off the mask and it's revealed to be Seth Rollins. Very weird, but kind of cool at the same time. But, what the fuck does this shit have to do with wrestling and the actual game? I have no idea. But more importantly, we got that Corey phone tease, so maybe they'll give us a little bit more later on in the show. We go to commercial, and when they come back, they talk about the Ellsworth Carmella situation, which if you haven't yet, man, go back and check out our review of Money in the Bank. I go off on that match. There's nothing more to be said about it, but they basically starts talking about tomorrow and what Daniel Bryan and Shane are teasing. Obviously, a lot of people think that we might get a Money in the Bank ladder match on TV tomorrow, so we will see what happens with that, man. That'll definitely be something that we talk about on our SmackDown Live review that will go up Wednesday morning, so check that out. So we cut to Kurt backstage on the phone. He's talking to someone saying that the Money in the Bank was highly controversial. Then Corey enters, so obviously we are going to get a little bit of answers tonight. He says, "I'm sorry you didn't have a good Father's Day. I got the same text you did. But here's what we should do." Then they are interrupted by Enzo and Cass. Kurt mentions some tweet that I guess Enzo had sent to Conor McGregor. Obviously, the WWE always trying to cash in on that, latest trend on social media. Obviously, the McGregor-Mayweather match was announced a week ago, so they have to talk about it. They have to get, those buzzwords in. Enzo goes on to say that there's more important things than a tweet, referring to the attacks that they've been suffering these past few weeks. Big Cass says outright that he thought that Enzo might have done it because of the chain that was found at the crime scene, but Cass says he knows for a fact it's the Big Show. Kurt goes on to say that by the end of tonight, we will know who attacked you both. So, thoughts here? I'm super, super happy. For one, we're actually going to get the answer to who attacked Enzo and Cass. We got advancement for the Corey and Kurt angle and the mystery attacker thing. At this point I'm thinking, damn, man, this episode of Raw is actually really good so far. Am I dreaming? We're actually getting answers tonight. You got me completely interested. I'm sticking in for the long haul. I want to know who it is. So, now the question is, obviously, again, did they build this up to be more than it should be, or will the reveal actually be entertaining? Obviously, we're not going to find out till later in the show, but just let me tell you guys, it's definitely entertaining, and you definitely want to find out what happens. So the next segment, we have Seth Rollins in the ring. He talks about his day being so crazy, doing the media tour for the new WWE 2K18 game. Like I said, he was on ESPN earlier today to make that announcement, so he's just basically talking about that. Then we get a "You Deserve It" chant for the WWE 2K18 cover, which honestly is super pathetic. Guys, we have got to retire that chant. Please save it for someone that actually deserves something, not this. It was pretty much, it was just pathetic, guys. Let's not do that again. He goes on to say that this isn't my cover, this is our cover. This whole thing felt like one giant commercial. Honestly, it was laughable. Seth looks like a fool just reciting lines that they obviously fed to him. The "You Deserve It" chant is hilariously sad. We gotta stop it. Save it for someone that actually deserves something, please. Eventually, Bray interrupts on the Titantron, saying Seth is contradicting himself. Bray talks down to Seth for pushing a corporate agenda, which I actually have to agree with Bray here for once. This was pathetic. Bray goes on to say that you aren't that man, and Seth says that he isn't that man, he is the man, which is obviously that super cheeseball line that they have to do. Seth goes on to say that gods only exist in our minds, and Bray may be a god in his own mind, but to Seth, Bray is a coward. Wyatt then says it's time to make a sacrifice. He blows out his lamp and says he's here and comes down to the ring. Bray obviously takes his sweet fucking time coming to the ring with his overly long entrance that he does not deserve. But this is what was actually surprising. When Bray finally gets to the ring after about 45 fucking minutes of him walking down the ramp, the lights come on and Seth is standing on top of the post. He hits a huge frog splash onto Bray. knocks him out, and leaves. My thoughts on this, I really like that surprise attack from Seth. That was totally unexpected. Very cool. I thought for sure Bray was going to get in the ring and we were going to have a whole long Bray Wyatt promo that we've seen 1,000 times. So, very cool for Seth to just do a surprise attack as soon as the lights came on. Now, having said all of that, I'm not excited at all for a Bray versus Seth match at Great Balls of Fire, which, make no doubt about it, guys, that is where we are going with this. Even though it has not been announced, that is going to be on the card at Great Balls of Fire. And Bray will easily lose to Seth. It's not even a question. They aren't going to have Seth, the cover boy of their new game, lose to a guy who never wins anything ever. So, obviously, Seth will win, and it'll be just another match. I really didn't like the whole, 2K18 commercialized promo from Seth. I thought it was kind of cringy here and there, and I wish he really didn't have to come out there and say that shit, but it is what it is. I get it. So segment, we go back to the desk, and Corey is back now. He goes on to say that he thinks Kurt Angle is the best GM WWE has ever had. He stands beside him despite his personal matters. Nothing really to note here, just a little tiny advancement in this story. But this is definitely, I feel like this is definitely heading towards Stephanie coming back as GM and battling Kurt for control. They've never really mentioned his GM role being at stake before until now. And now that they have, I think it's kind of obvious where this is going to head. Now, at the end of the show, we'll talk about what I think about this and if this angle is actually over, because something that happens later in the show, I'm not sure if the Corey and Kurt angle is officially done with, but obviously the Enzo and Cass angle is done with now, so we'll see what happens. We have an interview backstage with Finn Balor. Charlie asks him about what's next for Finn Balor. Obviously, we all want to know what he's going to be doing at Great Balls of Fire. He says that things at Extreme Rules didn't go how he hoped, but it's important to look forward, and all he sees in front of him is the Universal title. Charlie mentions that the Roman and Joe match tonight is going to happen, and he asks for a prediction from Balor. Balor says no one knows Joe better than him. Then he goes on to talk about Roman, which I thought we were going to have that, but Roman is the guy, and, putting him over like we always do. But then he's attacked by Elias Samson from behind. Elias screams at him and says, "Never upstage me again." Devon actually comes in here, and he gets a big pop because he comes out here to Balor's aid as he's knocked on the ground. So my thoughts here, maybe we will actually get an Elias versus Balor match after all. Originally I was saying that obviously Elias was feuding with Dean Ambrose last week on Raw and the week before that, but I'm feeling like they might have made a direction change here. Originally I was thinking we were going to have that triple threat at Great Balls of Fire between Dean, Miz, and Elias for the Intercontinental title, but this whole thing seems to be a change in story and a change in direction for the WWE, so maybe now it's going to be Elias versus Balor at Great Balls of Fire. We still didn't get a confirmation on that, but we will see. But it looks like that is where they are headed. The third match of the night we get is a cruiserweight match between Akira Tozawa versus TJP. This whole match, we don't really need to go into this too much, but there was some serious story implications, I would say. Obviously, Titus comes out and basically asks, what are we doing? We can't have a match of this magnitude without the proper brand. Titus gets in the ring. He's trying to get this crowd excited for this cruiserweight match, really trying to get them excited, but no one is really getting behind it. Titus goes on to try and hype up each competitor, saying, in this corner, TJP, in this corner, Akira Tozawa. It's awkwardly silent the whole time, guys. No one's really buying into the cruiserweights here, unfortunately. The match begins, and Akira starts his chants, which obviously him and Bo are going to have to fight for that gimmick. Akira gets a nice deep arm drag to take down TJP, but then TJP then reverses it, flips over Akira from a headstand position. TJP put Akira in the corner and strikes him down. Akira then goes for a senton bomb onto TJP, but he gets the knees up. Then Neville's music plays. Basically, Neville comes out to the commentary booth. Someone might want to tell Neville that this match started about 4 minutes ago, but anyway, he grabs the mic and he says that he's not here to talk to Michael Cole, but to watch Akira Tozawa. We head to commercial, and when we come back, Neville isn't even sitting by the commentary booth. He's like all the way off to the side, and he's sitting in, one of those rolling chairs, looking pretty badass, actually. He's sitting almost like you would on a throne, kind of like reminiscent of Joffrey from Game of Thrones. That's kind of how he's sitting. TJP in the ring, he has a face lock onto Akira in the middle of the ring. Then he has a kip up after Akira finally gets some offense going. TJP then gets Akira back on the mat and puts him in a series of nice submission holds. The crowd actually starts to do an ah, ah, ah chant, which is a nice surprise. Obviously getting direction from Titus on the sideline here. He's been trying to get the crowd into it since the beginning. Eventually, Akira jumps down and hits a suicide dive to TJP. TJP then hits a gutbuster for a near fall. TJP nearly gets the detonation kick after this, but misses. Akira then hits a suplex onto TJP, gets back to the top of the rope. This time he hits the senton bomb off the top post for the win. Then Cole says, "Ain't that a screensaver?" Which someone might want to tell Michael Cole that it's 2017 and screensavers don't really exist anymore. Titus then heads into the ring after the match. He starts congratulating Akira for the win. He goes on to say that he forgot to mention that he and Apollo Crews are actually going to have a tag match tonight against Sheamus and Cesaro, which, oh god, I can't wait for that. Color me excited. Eventually, Neville has enough. He's had enough of this whole thing. He interrupts Titus and tells Akira that he warned him last week to tread carefully. Titus says that he doesn't see a king out of Neville, but a scared little boy. He then says the Neville level will be annihilated by the Tozawa Power. Overall, this was kind of all over the place. It was pretty horrible in most spots. I mean, the match itself was decent. These two guys can definitely go. It was probably one of the better cruiserweight matches in recent memory, actually. But I think Titus, coming out and really struggling to get the crowd interested in the match made this whole thing kind of awkward. I think he got them more over than they would have by themselves. I think if they would have just come out here and, had their typical cruiserweight match, I think the crowd would have been even more silent. So overall, though, man, like I said previously on other episodes of Raw and my issues with the cruiserweights, I'm glad that they're mixing the main roster with the cruiserweights, even if it's just Titus right now, because I think it does help show that the cruiserweights are not just a side act. They need to find a way to implement them more into the main roster and get more guys involved. So I think that will help the cruiserweights eventually, and I think they need to continually to keep doing this. We do get a quick tease before we head to commercial. They show Kurt talking to Dash and Dawson backstage, the Revival, obviously teasing that they may be the ones that attacked Enzo. Obviously the two, culprits here, the two people that we're investigating are the Revival and the Big Show. So we'll see what happens at the end of the show. R-Truth then gets his weekly vignette, obviously battling against Goldust, doing the same old thing. R-Truth basically just goes on to say that he accepts Goldust's offer for a match next week, and that's pretty much it. We get a backstage segment at this point, and Bo Dallas is shown backstage sulking after his loss against Balor. Then Curtis Axel makes an appearance. He comes up and tries to comfort him, telling him that he believes in Bo. Axel mentions some inspirational quote, and then Bo says that I stole that from a poster with a cat on it. But you could actually barely hear him say this, so no one really laughed or reacted in any way. This is really strange. Anyway, but then The Miz interrupts. He goes on to say that they haven't looked so hot lately and say that they only have themselves to blame for it. He makes fun of Bo for being the comic relief, which I'm not really sure he's ever made anyone laugh in his career. Miz brings up how they were not like this while on the set of Marine 5. Axel then gets in The Miz's face, saying that he should watch out what he says about him. Miz then basically burns him so bad here that Axel might not ever be able to show his face again. He says, "Why? What's going to happen? I'll go on to headline Raws, and you'll be backstage having a match with catering." Ouch. That was a little too real here for probably both of these guys who have been no shows on Raw since the brand split. So, ouch, man. The Miz coming with straight fire. That had to cut them deep. Anyway, Miz says, "Or you can join me. Be my entourage, and I will make you the stars your family would be proud of." So thoughts here, it's weird that Miz is looking for a squad of people to be at his side. I don't think he really needs that. But maybe if Maurice actually does leave him, obviously last week there was lots of teases about them maybe breaking up. So maybe if Maurice leaves, this would be a nice replacement, but she hasn't been on this show as of yet. We have no real answer for that whole angle so far tonight. But honestly, if you're going to replace Maurice with Bo Dallas and Curtis Axel, you're fucking up, Miz. Let's just be real. You fucked up. Anyway, we go backstage and we have an interview. Charlie is going to interview Samoa Joe. So glad that Samoa Joe's getting more time on this show. Like I said last week, he needs to be sprinkled all over this thing, man. He is in the hottest feud in WWE right now. You need to put him on TV as much as possible. She goes on to ask how he's preparing for his upcoming matches, but then Samoa Joe turns the question on Charlie and says, well, why don't you ask Roman what he's doing to prepare for me? They show a highlight package of Joe beating Roman on his opening night about 4 months ago, which, holy shit, I cannot believe it's been 4 months since Samoa Joe debuted. Feels like it was just a few weeks ago. Damn, that's crazy. Anyway, Joe says that Roman will leave here tonight a broken man. Then he goes on to say that Brock, that he should be careful for what he asks for. He says that he's going to lock him in the Coquina Clutch and not let go of him or the Universal Championship. Thoughts here, man? Another amazing promo out of Joe. Good Lord, man, he is one of the best on the mic. He brings that big fight feel to every single battle he does. He's just so good on the mic, man. I hope the WWE is starting to realize that, and they start putting him on the show more and more, because goddamn, he deserves it, man. You want to give a "you deserve it" chant? That's the motherfucker you give the "you deserve it" chant to. Anyway, we head into the fourth match of tonight, and it's surprisingly Roman versus Samoa Joe. I honestly couldn't believe this wasn't the main event. I was shocked at this point, but obviously the main event tonight, there's a reason for all of this. So anyway, this ends up being the best match on this show. This match was fucking amazing. Go back and check this out. Both of these guys, man, they're just so good. Samoa Joe, and I know Roman, obviously, everyone has their issues with Roman, but Roman played up the full heel in this match here, and Joe was kind of playing that de facto babyface, so that is what you want to see out of Roman. Both of these men start the match staring each other down, kind of circling around in the ring. We get a "Let's Go Roman," "Roman sucks" / "Let's Go Joe" chant. It was kind of mixed all over the place. Joe tries to deliver a shoulder tackle to Roman, but when he does, it doesn't even faze him. Roman stays standing. Then Samoa Joe tries to do it again, and the same thing happens. They both start jawing back and forth at each other in the middle of the ring. Then Joe pushes Roman's face, and then Roman turns around and just clocks Joe with a couple of right hands. Joe then gets a knee and a forearm to Roman, but Roman is able to bounce back and hit the shoulder tackle, sending Joe to the mat. Roman then starts revving up for the Superman punch like he always does, but Joe rolls out to the ring smartly. So he obviously sees that Roman is getting ready to hit him with that Superman punch, and he just rolls out of the ring to get away from it. Joe starts striking down Roman with some rapid-fire jabs. Joe nearly gets a Coquina Clutch onto Roman, but he's able to slip away and roll to the outside. Obviously, Roman really putting over how strong that move is. Even Roman is scared of the Coquina Clutch because that's how strong it is. Joe then headbutts Roman and screams, "What's my name?" Obviously, the whole thing about wanting him to put respect on his name. Roman then hits Joe with a Samoan drop out of nowhere, really turning the momentum to his side. Joe then gets back in control and throws Roman into the post from the outside, then hits a running senton onto Roman. We go to commercial, and when we come back, Joe is in complete control. He's delivering an elbow drop to Roman on the mat. Commentators are really putting over Joe's stamina, even though he's kind of a bigger guy. Joe has Roman in a face lock on the mat. This is kind of a rest hold here. Both of these guys trying to get their breath back and get re-energized for the ending of this match. Roman is then able to dodge an incoming senton bomb from Joe as he tries to rally. Roman then hits a series of clotheslines to Joe. Joe ducks a Superman punch, but Roman is able to hit a boot to Joe for a near fall. Roman is obviously starting to feel it at this point. He's got the momentum. He's in the corner. He starts hulking up. Joe stands up. He's wobbly. He's woozy. He's about to get hit with that Superman punch, but he's able to retreat from the ring and avoid it. Roman gets out and hits a huge drive-by to Joe. Joe just sold this thing perfectly, man. He just hits back first onto the mat. Did not even hesitate. He just gets decimated here. Really good-looking stuff from both of these guys. Roman then goes for a Superman punch, but Joe reverses it into an inverted atomic drop, into a boot, into a senton bomb. So a huge triplet of moves here. 1, 2, Roman kicks out. Joe has his offense going, but Roman reverses an Uranagi from Joe into a Superman punch for a near fall, which looked really badass. Roman is back in the corner. He's hulking up. He's looking for a Superman punch, but Joe hits him with a knee. Joe catches Roman in the spear with the knee, obviously, then hits the Uranagi onto Roman for another near fall. Joe is creeping at this point. He's looking for that Coquina Clutch. He comes up from behind Roman, grabs Roman, but it isn't fully locked in. Roman is able to slip out. He bounces off the ropes and hits the spear. 1, 2, Joe puts his foot on the bottom rope. Wow, super believable near fall here. Thought for sure Joe was done. And at this point, I'm thinking, good God, Joe better not lose this match, man. I will be pissed. He's heading into that match with Brock. He needs to win every single match until he faces Brock, and then we'll see what happens from there. But if they were about to have Roman beat Joe clean, that would have set the internet ablaze, let me tell you that. Anyway, we start getting "This Is Awesome" chants, which people are obviously happy that Roman didn't win there. Everyone thought that was the end of the match, so people really rallying behind Joe here. Joe gets back into the ring, barely beating the count. Both men are in the corner when all of a sudden we hear this alarm, and I'm thinking, what's happening here? Is this like an alarm in the arena or something? But no, this isn't an alarm at all. It's an ambulance backing up into the stadium. The doors on the back of the ambulance open, and it reveals Braun Strowman. Roman is watching this happen on the Titantron, and as he does, Joe comes from behind, catches him in the coquina clutch. Joe's got it fully cinched in. Roman is fading fast. He's pretty much out cold at this point, and it's GG. Samoa Joe wins. First of all, man, oh my God, fuck yes, Braun is back. Perfect way to reintroduce him to. I love that he left in an ambulance and he's coming back in an ambulance. That is fucking cool. Love that he came back in that. That is awesome. He's obviously coming for Roman, but when will he attack him? That's the big question here, which we got an answer to really quickly. Joe not getting a clean win is a little shitty. I wish he would have beaten Roman just clean without the distraction from Braun, but he still got a win on Roman. That's what's important here. So I know a lot of people might feel like, oh, Joe should have just beat Roman clean, man. You got to elevate him to go against Brock, but guys, they aren't going to do that. Come on, this is Roman fucking Reigns. They aren't going to have him lose clean to anybody. So they aren't just going to have Roman lose easily. I'm glad that Joe got this win, though, because he obviously needs it more as he heads into that match with Brock. So that is what is important here, and that should not be taken away from Joe. Joe then leaves the ring immediately. Braun's music then hits. He's back in the ring. Roman is just laid out on the mat, completely done for after the coquina clutch. Braun has his eyes fixated on Roman. He has a mic in his hand, and he says, "Roman, you seem to have forgotten that I'm not finished with you." His famous tagline, obviously, from their battles a few months ago. Braun picks up Roman, slams him into the mat viciously. Braun then picks the mic back up and says, "If you think you're man enough, I'll see you at Great Balls of Fire in an ambulance match." So there we go, man. Like I said, I knew Roman was not going to be left off this Great Balls of Fire card. It just didn't make sense. And I'm so glad that Braun Strowman is back. I cannot wait to see these matches again. Braun is so good. I'm so glad that he's back. And the fact that we're going to get an ambulance match just makes even more sense. So I thought this was a great match between Joe and Roman. This was easily one of the biggest highlights on this show. Just a really great match out of both of these guys. It honestly felt like a pay-per-view match that we were getting on TV. You know, with those two dominant guys in the ring, that is something that you would see in a pay-per-view, not on TV. And then Braun obviously making his return is fucking amazing as well. I knew they weren't going to keep Roman off that pay-per-view. It just didn't make sense. So I'm glad that Braun is back and we're going to see that feud continue. Overall, this was one of the biggest highlights of Raw for sure. Joe is obviously a badass, and Roman really playing into that full heel persona tonight was a nice surprise. And then just top it off with Braun making a surprise return. I mean, guys, that's a great segment right there. That was written really well and done very well. So props to the WWE for giving us something that is entertaining. So far, man, my notes here, I'm thinking, damn, Raw has actually been really good. Like, actually really, really good. And obviously, we still have a lot left in this show to go. We still have a lot of final segments. We have a Miz TV segment coming up, and we have answers for the Enzo attack. So overall, man, I'm hyped for this rest of Raw. It did not feel like a 3-hour show, which I think is the biggest compliment you can give to this show, when a lot of the times they struggle to fill those 3 hours. Tonight, it was a lot different. So next, we get that Miz TV segment, and his special guest this week is Maurice. Miz, obviously in the doghouse after this previous week's shenanigans where he breaks the grandfather clock and knocks Maurice off the apron, injuring her a little bit, so he has to make it up to his wife somehow. He's in the ring with basically a giant red box similar to the one that Maurice gave to the Miz with the grandfather clock in it, along with two men in bear costumes this time, which is important. They're both holding signs, one that says, "I'm sorry," the other one says, "Please forgive me." So obviously Miz is trying to fix things here between him and Maurice. Then we get to hear Maurice's music for the first time in ages, and wow, it just reminded me how shitty that song is. They need to get Maurice a new theme song. She comes to the ring, then makes Miz pull the rope down for her like she always does. He hands her some champagne, goes in for a kiss, but she turns her head away. Miz goes on to apologize for breaking the grandfather clock and knocking her off the apron last week in that match, but he knows that sorry isn't good enough, and that's why he got her a gift. She opens up the big red box, and it's the grandfather clock that she gave him originally. He apparently fixed it. He said he was up all night on YouTube watching tutorials on how to fix clocks, and he made it better. He made it perfect, just like Maurice. He says Ambrose is trying to ruin what they have because they have what he wants, the perfect relationship and the Intercontinental title. Maurice is starting to really feel the apology. You can see her demeanor change. Miz then says, "Please forgive me." Maurice then goes in for a kiss, obviously showing that yes, she's over it and they're mending their problems here. But as she does, Ambrose music hits. So as he gets in the ring though and approaches Miz and Maurice, Miz, like he always does, tries to put Maurice in front of him to shield himself using his wife. And as he does this, Maurice is still holding that that glass of champagne, and she spills it all over herself and her dress, all over her face. She's super pissed at this. She turns around, slaps the Miz, and the Miz is left apologizing in the ring. He comes at Dean. Dean nearly hits the Dirty Deeds, but Miz dodges it and gets out of the ring. Dean is left in the ring, and the two Bears then attack Dean. It's Curtis Axel and Bo Dallas. They rip their masks off, and it's confirmed to be them. So it looks like Curtis Axel and Bo Dallas have now joined the entourage of The Miz. They go on to beat down Dean, then throw him into The Miz, who then hits the skull-crushing finale. Thoughts? I really like this segment. I didn't, originally when I saw those two Bears, it didn't even click in my mind that it might be Bo Dallas and Curtis Axel, which I should have seen that coming from a mile away. I like that they made us think that the Miz-Maurice thing was over and done with, but then it turned, and now it looks like the Miz is even in more hot water than he was originally. I also love, there was a spot where Miz goes after Dean, and he runs into the grandfather clock, breaking it again, so I thought that was cool. Overall, I think this build has actually been far more entertaining than it has any right being. Seeing these goofy-ass bears and grandfather clocks in the ring, that could easily be cringe 1000, right? That could be cringe moments all over the place. But these two guys have really made it work. It's far more interesting than their last feud, that's for sure. Even if I'm not excited for a Dean versus Miz match again, at least this build has been entertaining, and it's been somewhat funny, each week going on. So that's my thoughts on that. Obviously not super excited for another Dean versus Miz match, but what are you going to do? Anyway, they show a quick little video clip, and it's Kurt shown talking backstage to the Big Show, similar to how he was doing it with the Revival, obviously alluding to what's going to come next. Next, we get a throwaway match here. This was probably the slowest part of Raw for me. This was obviously Apollo and Titus versus Cesaro and Sheamus. This is a really, really quick match. We don't really need to go into this too much. The crowd was completely dead during this thing, just completely silent. I do like watching Apollo and Cesaro in the ring together. I will say that, though. Obviously, both of those guys are incredible in the ring. They can definitely go at it. And even though we only got a small glimpse of it tonight, it was still cool. Overall, though, man, this match was basically, it just meant nothing. It was just a throwaway match to kill time. Cesaro and Sheamus do get the win. This was probably the first segment of the night, other than maybe the tag match earlier in the show, which was actually okay. And the Seth Rollins segment, normally Raw is filled with nothing but filler garbage, and tonight was not like that. So it was very hard to find, what was filler and what was not. This definitely was. It's weird seeing Titus and Apollo on a tag team now, which they haven't really established that before. I don't know if that's something that they're going to do going forward, but to be honest with you, I don't think that's something that I would be even excited for. So I'm thinking that might have been just a one-off thing. Anyway, we go on to a badass video package here, and it's showing the history of Samoa Joe, showing tons of his old highlights from Ring of Honor and other promotions that he's been in. Really love that Joe's having more of a presence on this show. Like I said, man, he's in the hottest feud in the WWE. He needs to be all over Raw, and he's heading into that match with Brock, so they should put him all over this episode and all the ensuing episodes after this. And Joe just has a way with words, man. Everything he says, it grabs my attention. It makes me listen. It perks me up. And he always backs up his words in the ring as well. So I'm super excited for this match. I still cannot wait for it. Brock also has some promo time in this highlight package as well. He says if you want Brock Lesnar, come after Brock Lesnar, not Paul Heyman. He goes on to call Joe a punk-ass bitch. He says that Joe knows that he is out of his league. Really great stuff from Brock here as well. I really wish he would actually get promo time on a mic in the ring sometime. You know, obviously Paul Heyman is great for him, and Paul Heyman is amazing. I just think Brock can actually hold his own, man. Anytime he speaks, I also listen because this guy's a bad motherfucker. And when he starts saying things, I listen because, like I said, he backs it up in the ring. So he always has my attention. So I kind of wish Brock would get a little bit more leeway and get some time on the mic. But obviously, as long as he has Paul Heyman, that's not going to happen. Brock then ends this vignette by saying, "Welcome to Suplex City, bitch." Brock will be on Raw next week, so I cannot wait for that. We're going to probably have another stare down between Joe and Brock, maybe some actual action. We will see, but definitely excited for next week and cannot wait for that match, man. It's going to be a fucking doozy. Match number 7, I think this is. I've lost count at this point. We did get a lot of matches on this show and a lot of segments. Overall, like I said, man, this was a great episode of Raw, and this was entertaining. However, this match right here was probably the worst part of the entire show. It was Sasha versus Nia Jax, and to be honest with you, women had no presence on this show outside of this little segment here. It's very weird that this is all they got tonight. They got no backstage segments, no interviews, but this little segment right here felt like they realized that there was no women on this show, and we better come up with a segment fast. Obviously, you know, I guess that makes sense considering this is the same company that just had a man win the first ever women's Money in the Bank match last night, but whatever, it is what it is. After Nia gets in the ring with Sasha, then Alexa's music hits. They say that she's going to be on commentary. We head to commercial and we come back and the match has already started. So nothing makes me tune out more than a match that gets their start cut off from TV. So we come back, Sasha hits a double knee onto Nia, but immediately starts selling an injury. Then Emma shows up behind Alexa on commentary and chases her into the ring. Alexa then hides behind Nia Jax, who apparently she's calling her best friend now. Then Nia throws Alexa in front of her. Emma goes for a kick, but Alexa dodges, and the kick hits Nia in the process. The bell then rings for a DQ, and then all of the women in the ring start brawling. Emma and Bliss start beating down Sasha Banks out of nowhere, so all of a sudden they're teaming up. Then Dana and Mickie James come running out to the ring. This whole thing is getting out of hand quickly. It feels like I said, they realized that there were no women on this show, and they decided to just throw all of them in the ring at once. Then, finally, the last woman to come out for this brawl is Bayley. And the crowd has zero, and I mean zero, reaction to Bayley here. Nobody cares. Bayley comes out, she starts beating down Alexa and Emma, basically destroying all of the heels. Nia eventually starts taking to Bayley, but then Mickie and Dana start helping her. They send Nia to the outside. Bayley's music starts playing immediately as this happens, and the segment ends. It seems like they were crunched for time, and they needed this shit to end quickly. So, like I said, it felt exactly like I said. They realized there were no women on this show. They said, oh fuck, we better put somebody out there. And they just made up some bullshit segment at the last second. Felt super rushed, felt super unimportant. And like I said, man, very worrying that there was zero reaction for Bayley's first return since Extreme Rules. No one seems to care about her anymore, and truly, it's sad. The build for her since she's come up has been completely fucked, and the WWE has no one to blame but themselves for that. Just a horrible segment. This was easily the worst blemish on what overall has been a really good Raw. This is one segment you can absolutely skip, and I wish they would have just kept the women off completely if this is the segment that they were going to give them. Alright, finally, man, we head into the main event now, and it is Kurt Angle coming to the ring to make the announcement about Enzo and Big Cass's attacks. This segment was amazing, guys, so here we go. Kurt starts talking about the attack, saying that Raw will not be devolved, and he will not stand for something that hurts the wrestlers or endangers them. He asks Big Cass and Enzo to come out, and they do their whole intro spiel, which kind of felt out of place considering the situation here. I mean, you're here to get some serious answers. I don't think it's time to be asking the crowd how they're doing. Anyway, Big Cass then goes on to say that they found out who, if they find out who did it, they will find them and they will prove that those people are soft. Kurt then brings out the Revival first, saying, he's been interviewing people all night and he's going to bring them out to the ring and we're going to discuss this. So he asks them to come out, then he asks the Big Show to come out. Kurt basically asked the Big Show if he did it outright, which, why are you asking these guys these same questions again after you just said that you were doing interviews with them backstage? Doesn't make sense, but whatever. Big Show says he didn't do it, and if he did, he would have come straight to their face and punched them in the mouth. He calls out Big Cass, saying he doesn't want none of the Big Show, calling him soft. Big Show then turns his anger over to Kurt and says that if he thinks that the Big Show did it, if that's what he thinks of the Big Show after all they've been through, maybe he doesn't need to be on his show anymore. Obviously teasing that he may leave and go to SmackDown Live because of this accusation. Then Big Show decides to leave the ring. He's pissed. Cass then says, well, there's your answer, saying Big Show's, obviously guilty just leaving the ring like that. He basically says, we don't want someone like you on Raw. Kurt says it's ironic that these attacks started as soon as the Revival made their return. They completely deny it. They say that they didn't do it. Kurt says that he's come to the conclusion that they have solid alibis. But then, Corey, on the mic, he says, Kurt, I may be of assistance. So, this is where I got a little confused. I don't know if Corey and Kurt still have an angle going on, or if this was the finish for both of these angles that they've been building up. Corey goes on to say that Cass is lying about the giant lump on his head because he spoke with the WWE medical officials and they say that none of them recall treating him at all. Cass says it was the EMTs, it wasn't our WWE staff. Corey goes on to say, well, okay, I guess that makes sense, but when you were attacked, you were not medically cleared and you still competed anyway. Why was that? Cass goes on to say that he said that he would not leave Enzo's side and that's why he competed last week. Corey then says, we might not know what happened to Enzo, but he knows what happened to Cass last week. He says he has some security camera footage, and the entire crowd is like, oh shit, we're going to find out. He kicks it to the footage on the Titantron, and Cass is seen standing there alone. Cass is kind of looking around corners, trying to see if anyone's around. Then it shows Cass setting up the props, basically showing that Cass set up the attack on himself, faking the entire thing. They come back to the ring. Boos erupt at this point. People are pissed at Cass for faking this whole thing. Corey says that we know that no one ever attacked him and that Cass attacked Enzo. Enzo and him turn around. They're sharing words. Enzo is basically saying, I know there's more to the story than this, man. I don't believe this. Don't listen to it. Then Cass says, you're damn right I did it. And now we officially have the Cass turn. It is here, boys. The breakup is happening. Cass says it's hard being his partner because all the stupid things that he says, saying that he stayed with him because he felt bad for Enzo because everyone in the back doesn't like him. He says he put up with his crap for years, every single day, until he finally snapped. Enzo looks legitimately emotional here. Dude, he has an actual tear fall from his eye. True emotion here, guys. It was crazy. I got chills. This was an amazing moment, guys, from a lot of different aspects. So you got to go check this out, man. Enzo and Cass breaking up is a big deal. I'm going to talk more about that here in a second after we finish this up. But Cass is basically screaming, saying he wanted to watch Enzo suffer for all the crap that he put up with over the years. This is easily Cass's best promo of his career. Amazing stuff, true emotion, completely dominating on the mic. This is what we've always wanted to see out of Big Cass. He says that he wanted to test and see if Enzo was smart enough to figure it out, but he goes on to say that Enzo is even dumber than he thought. He calls him dead weight, saying he was holding him back from rising to the top of the WWE. Cass says that he is the star, and Enzo's mouth just writes checks that his ass can't cash. He says, me and you, we are through. Cass then hits a big boot to Enzo, says you can't teach that as Enzo's laying out cold, and we go off the air with Enzo laying out cold in the middle of the ring as you suck chants erupt. And be clear, those you suck chants aren't directed at Kurt Angle, but at Cass. The turn has officially happened. Holy shit, guys. I honestly did not think they would do it. They managed to build this up in such a way that by the end, I thought there was no way for them to make this worth it, but they did. This was the only way to make this weeks of long builds mean something, and they actually did it. Cass has officially turned on Enzo, man, and this was a great segment. Cass and Enzo really showing some true emotion here. This wasn't necessarily Gargano Ciampa levels that we saw in NXT a month ago, but seeing Enzo cry in the ring as Cass is just berating him and yelling at him, man, that was something else and really shows how great Enzo is as far as on the mic and just his acting ability in general. It wouldn't surprise me if that was actual emotion from him, considering these guys have been paired up since they showed up on WWE. Obviously, these guys go way back. They were jobbers coming in, and they elevated themselves to be the tag team that they are today on their own merits. This wasn't something that the WWE pushed or anything. These were guys that got over on their own, and you got to feel for them. Obviously, they are best friends outside of the ring and outside of wrestling, so the emotion that Enzo is showing in that ring, I don't doubt for a second, is true emotion. He's obviously sad that this is the end of their pairing, and he showed it in the ring with that tear. This is obviously one of the most over tag teams in a very long time, and it's kind of sad that we're not going to have them together anymore, man. Obviously, we're about to get a huge, big singles push for Cass. I have no idea what's in the card for Enzo at this point. Maybe a manager role. Is he going to get revenge on Cass? Maybe he'll team up with a Big Show. Maybe he'll go to 205 Live. I don't know, man. We will see. I do have a feeling that the Big Show is going to come and help him at some point because obviously that might end up being the first feud for Cass is the Big Show because they've kind of been teasing that a little bit. I kind of thought Big Show might show up at the end of this show, but man, they were so over time at this point that they probably couldn't even do that if they wanted to. So Cass just leaves as Enzo is laid out. Fucking crazy into Raw, guys. And this overall was just a great show. I'm honestly surprised they didn't fuck this up. They actually gave us answers to a lot of the looming storylines and also managed to keep us entertained with great matches and segments backstage. So this overall was a great episode of Raw, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. We got good matches. We got surprise returns. We got a huge heel turn with Cass. We got a few shitty, cringy moments. Obviously, the women's segment was probably honestly the worst thing on the show for how random and messy it was. And probably the Apollo tag match. That was also pretty bad, but it was still a match. Overall, though, man, this was a great episode of Raw, and I wish that we got more of these episodes and not the this is your life type episodes. Whoever wrote this, let them be in control more often than those other guys, because this is the type of episodes of Raw that I want to see, and I know a lot of fans want to see. The Roman and Joe battle with Braun coming back was one of the highlights of this show. I can't even call it the highlight because of that main event segment tonight. But man, that was just a fantastic match from those two guys. And then plus, we obviously got a huge return of a star in Braun Strowman. So glad to see him back so soon. And I'm ready to go for that Great Balls of Fire match. I want to see Braun and Roman again, man. I'm not sick of that feud yet. I want to see more and more of it. I'm starting to wonder, though, maybe they're going to throw a number one contender stipulation into that Braun and Roman match, since Roman was kind of speaking so defiantly about being the number one contender despite him not really earning it at all. I think they might end up saying, well, you know what, Roman, you want to be the number one contender? Why don't we make this match between you and Braun at Great Balls of Fire a number one contender match? And then the winner will go on to face Brock or Joe, whoever wins, which would actually make more sense if you think about it, because the whole rumor is that they want Brock versus Roman at the next WrestleMania. And if they do Roman versus Brock at SummerSlam, then obviously plans have changed. But a way around this would be to throw the number one contender stipulation onto the Braun and Roman match at Great Balls of Fire, have Braun win, and then he will go on to face Brock Lesnar or Samoa Joe for the Universal title. So that would help prolong things a little bit and keep Roman and Brock away from each other. Obviously, like I said, man, the women's spot on this show was rushed, felt completely out of place. Like I said, they obviously did not have anything for them, so they just threw them out there for a giant brawl. And the surprise Bayley return was super disappointing. Nobody cared about it. The entire women's division on Raw is a complete mess right now. I think they honestly really need to rebuild it and get some new talent. Maybe someone from that Mae Young Classic tournament that's going to happen next month. maybe whoever wins that can come into Raw and really freshen up this division and be, the new Charlotte. Because ever since Charlotte's left the Raw division, man, it's fallen apart for me. So they definitely have to find a way to retool that and refreshen it, because it's dying a slow death right now. And Bayley is easily the worst that she's ever been. Make no doubt about it. She is horrible. It would have been more nice if they would have actually played into that whole Sasha-Alexa tease that they did last week, but we got nothing of that on this show. They obviously still have some time to build towards that, but they are cutting it close. So they need to tell us who Alexa is facing next. Is it going to be Sasha? Are they going to give it to Nia Jax for a real match this time? Please, God, no, don't let it be Nia. Or is it going to be Bayley or Emma? Or who's it going to be? We need to find out. Let's get the ball rolling on that shit. The Miz and Ambrose stuff, it continues to be entertaining, even though it's building towards a match that we've seen countless times. The segments that they put on each week, though, with the Bears and these grandfather clocks, it could easily be a cringe segment, but these two guys are really, really making this work. So props to them for making something that could easily be awkward and horrible into something that's actually noteworthy and actually entertaining. Seth and Bray, I think that continues to be disappointing, guys. I'm not really feeling that match at all. I'm not hyped for it in the slightest bit. The build has been pretty weak so far, and it's just your stereotypical Bray Wyatt bullshit. Comes out and says the same things, and there's nothing really to see here, man. It's just going to be another match between these two guys at Great Balls of Fire, and Seth will win because Bray never wins, and that's how it's going to go. And then finally, man, what can you say about that final segment, man? It was heartbreaking. It was heart-wrenching. Seeing those two break up is super sad, but this segment was crazy, and it was done really well. Like I said, man, Enzo showing that real, true emotion out there, and if you think about it, as soon as they got off stage and got out of the ring, they were both probably hugging each other behind closed doors, considering how close of friends they truly are, and they finally realized that, man, this is the end of an era for us, and we got to go our separate ways and do new things now. That's got to be scary for those guys, and they obviously are going to be feeling pretty emotional about this. Obviously, those guys are close, and they're going to remain close despite this storyline, but, I honestly can't believe that they actually did the turn this early. I didn't think that we would get a Big Cass singles push at this point in his career, considering how over Cass and Enzo are, but there it is, man. They decided to do it, so Big Cass is now going to have to go on without his mouthpiece, and Enzo is going to have to go on without his muscle. So it's going to be interesting to see, can Cass prove that he can carry himself on the mic and in the ring? All eyes are going to be on Big Cass at this point, and it's either going to be sink or swim for him from here on out. I have no idea what's next for Enzo at this point. I seriously have no clue. Is he going to be a manager to somebody else? Will he be a single star? Will he, God forbid, go to 205 Live? Who knows, man? I honestly do not know what's in the cards for Enzo. I could see him maybe getting revenge on Cass and probably losing because they want to push Big Cass as a single star. Ever since Big Cass came up to the main roster, that has been one of their MOs, is to push Big Cass as that big badass single star. Remember when Enzo got hurt and they immediately started pushing for that with Big Cass? They obviously wanted to do this for a long time. So the bottom line here, though, guys, is that this is the end of a fantastic tag team. The reason these guys got over is on their own merits, man. They did it on their own. They started as a jobber team on NXT, losing to everybody. They worked their way through the ranks, and they did it through hard work and determination, through their own talent, and became a prominent tag team, not only in NXT, but on the main roster as well. And you just have to give props to both of these guys, man. Both as wrestlers and just men in general. Great performers, and it's honestly super, super sad to see them break up like this. Go check out this segment. It's going to give you an emotion, and bottom line, man, there's no more how you doing. There's no more Enzo and Cass intros, no more SAWFT soft promos. It's truly the end of a tag team, and it's truly the end of an era. So guys, that has been our episode of Raw. Absolutely fantastic episode out of WWE. Thank God they gave us something of worth tonight. This was a completely enjoyable episode of Raw. Obviously, there were a couple segments that were filler, but there were few and far in between. It wasn't like your typical episode of Raw where most of it is just filler garbage bullshit that no one wants to watch. Each segment had a purpose. Each segment pushed something new. And the ending, man, is going to make you cry. So go check it out, man. That is our episode. That is our review. As always, you can follow us on Twitter at @ramble_cast. Please subscribe to our YouTube page down below. Like I said at the top of the show, that is where you're going to find the highest quality episodes of Raw, or episodes of our show, Royal Ramble Podcast. So definitely check that out. We are also on Podbean. You can download the app and check us out there and listen to us on the go. And if you ever have any questions, man, you want to have something read on the air, please send it in to royalrambleradio@gmail.com, or just leave us a comment below on the various websites, whether that be YouTube or Podbean. Leave us a comment below. Tell us what you think about the Enzo turn, or the Enzo and Cass turn tonight, and the whole tag team breaking up. Let us know what you think, man. Very interested to hear what the fans think about that. So thank you so much, guys, for listening. We will be back tomorrow with our SmackDown Live review. Obviously, a lot of questions heading into that episode. Are they going to redo that Money in the Bank match with Carmella and Ellsworth? What is going to be Daniel Bryan and Shane's announcement regarding that? Lots of loose ends to tie up from that Money in the Bank pay-per-view, guys. So definitely check out tomorrow's episode. But this has been our review of Raw from June 19th, 2017, and we are out. Peace.